Every year you're losing money. It's like a leak. Sometimes you hear the tip tap as water drops into the sink, but usually they're so small and happen so infrequently that you barely notice them at all. And then at the end of the year, you're astonished to find that the water bill has almost doubled. And if you don't fix that leak, the drops fall more frequently and your bill increases every year. I'm talking about inflation. But with inflation, that water bill comes in the form of budget retirement. Over the years, your bank account is leaking, and you're the one paying the price. A couple of years ago, inflation was super high. Prices were going up 20% a year, and people were really freaking out. Now inflation has slowed down, and people are kind of relaxing and forgetting about it. Even though in the USA, the inflation is currently more stubborn than the government expected.
All right, let's begin, though, this hour with some new inflation data. The Consumer Price Index rose 0.4%. In March, prices are up 3.5% in the last 12 months. The increase was driven by the rising cost of rent and gas. These latest numbers are raising questions about when the Fed will cut interest rates.
So it is already affecting the market performance. But in general, it was not as bad as it was a couple of years ago. And people mostly just forget about it. And that's okay for your day-to-day life. But if you want to invest and build your wealth, that is really, really dangerous. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what inflation is and how it affects my money, and how can you combat the effects of inflation, avoiding the number one mistake people make when they are taking care of the value of their money. But before I start, I want to be honest with you. Your likes and subscribes are like rocket fuel to my motivation to keep making these videos. Plus, comments are gold. They let me know what kind of content actually helps you to conquer your financial goals. So hit that like button right now, right there below the video, the thumbs up. And if you like this content, subscribe like there's free money involved, which it kind of is with the financial tips I'm giving you. And leave a comment below if you have any questions or comments. All right, now that we've got that off the table, let's first understand what inflation actually is and how does it affect your money. I'm going to show you the exact formula for the inflation calculation. But first, let's try to see how it works in practice. Think about it like this. Let's say that the price of bread today is $1, and then in a year it's $1.05. So this is really simplified. In this case, the inflation would be 5% in a year. So the inflation is calculated with this formula. In the formula, A would be the starting cost in the Consumer Price Index for specific goods and services in a specific year or month. And B would be the ending cost for the same goods and services. And the Consumer Price Index measures change over time in the prices paid the consumers for a representative basket of goods and services, and bread being one of these goods. Now, that's still a bit complicated, right? And increasing the cost of bread by 5 cents in a year, that's not a big deal, right? When I was younger, I used to think,
nah, that's okay. It doesn't really matter. Let my grandma think about this. I'm young, I'm ambitious, I'm successful, I make good money, I can pay more.
But then I looked at it from a different perspective. It's really like the government announced, we have passed a new tax. You now have to pay 5% of your total savings every year to the government. How would that feel? We would be furious, right? If we had to pay 5% of our savings to the government every year, that would be huge. It would be horrible. And it would be really, really difficult to build wealth. And with inflation, the same thing happens. Prices go up and we can buy less and less with our money. But as there is no evil government doing it, we kind of tend to accept it. But now I want you to think back 10, 15, 20 years. What were the rents? How much did it cost to rent an apartment? What did the food cost? What did the entertainment cost? What kind of budget you could live on 20 years ago? And what does it take today? Now, this is what the formula for the inflation calculation actually means in practice. And let me tell you, actually, what you could buy for $100 in the USA in 2004 would actually cost you $166 today. That's quite a difference, right? I mean, did your income rise as much? On average, probably not. Now think about what that means for your savings. You're spending hours and hours working to make sure that you have some money to save. And then you're sticking that money to the bank account where it actually loses value and you can buy less and less with it. With this presentation, with this visualization, I'm kind of hoping to get you a bit angry, to get you a bit upset. Because we should be upset about inflation. We should be upset, and we should use this to motivate ourselves to do whatever we can to protect our hard-earned money from the effects of inflation. Okay, so if I got you at least a bit upset about the effects of inflation, you're probably thinking, inflation is a given thing. I cannot influence it, which is true. But that doesn't mean there is nothing you can do to protect the value of your money. So let me show you exactly how you can combat the effects of the inflation, avoiding the number one mistake people make when they are taking care of the value of their money. Stick with me for more. I'm just going to put it out there right now. Saving your hard-earned money in your bank account will not build you wealth. You will, on average, actually be losing money while saving it.
What?
And that is because the interest rates on the bank accounts usually do not keep up with inflation, which means the value of the money you are saving there is actually declining. And this is the number one mistake people make when they are saving. Inflation eats away at their purchasing power. Even with a positive interest rate, if it's lower than inflation, and it usually is, their money buys less and less over time. Your money sits idle in the bank account instead of being put to work and generating returns, growing wealth over time. The good news, however, is that the basic principles of investing money are actually really effective at beating the effects of inflation. Let me show you. This is the S&P stock market index since the 1927, not adjusted for inflation. And this is the S&P 500 stock market index since 1927, adjusted for inflation. So while the average S&P 500 return is 10.13%, adjusted for inflation, the historical average annual return is 6.37%. And what does exactly 6.37% annual return mean? It doesn't sound like much, does it? Well, let's check it out. So the 6.4 average annual return in 10 years of time is not 64% as it would be with the simple interest. It is 85%. Over 20 years, it is not 127% increase as it would be with simple interest. It's actually 244%. And finally, over 30 years, so over the really long run, it's not 191% increase as it would be with simple interest. It's a striking 538% increase. Now that's amazing. It means that basically you start and invest $100 at the beginning of the 30 years time period. And at the end of it, with the compound interest effect, you would get $638, just leaving the money sit there and reinvest all the returns that you get. It sounds like magic, right? It's not. It's the effect of compound interest. And there's a reason why Einstein said that this is one of the wonders of the world. It kind of is. Inflation is like a silent thief, stealing your purchasing power year after year. That's why relying solely on a savings account just isn't enough. Interest rates typically don't keep up with inflation and you are losing your money. And remember, you worked hard for that money. So don't let inflation silently eat it away. I know what you might be thinking now. Sure, sounds great, but investing is too risky for me. Maybe you even tried it in the past only to get burned. And you don't want to repeat that mistake. I totally get it. That's exactly what happened to me. I lost a big chunk of money. Not everything, but I swore I'm never investing again. But then I decided I'm going to take this disaster as a lesson. I started learning about investment, finished my CFA, and learned how to really invest money to grow wealth. It is really important to stick to the basic principles of investing if you want to use stock markets to beat the inflation and generate returns. Following these basic principles not only enabled me to compensate for the money I have lost with this first bad financial decision I have made, but also helped me build wealth over time. And if you want to learn how to get started, then you need to see this video right here somewhere where I talk about exactly that. I'll see you there. In the meantime, I'm cheering for you. Bye-bye.